Thank you, Durham. Thank you to everyone that's come here today. And I think we should always remember those that went before. We mourned those that had gone at the start of this afternoon's proceedings. And I particularly remember my old friend, Rodney Bickerstaff. But I never want to ever forget Davy Hopper and Davy Guy for all they did for the Durham miners for so many years. The way that they decided that the big meeting had to go on, that sense of togetherness had to go on, that sense of community had to go on, and that even with pits closed and gone, the spirit of the mining communities would never die and would never, ever disappear. And this big meeting has always had an international theme to it. Today, we heard from Ibrahim of the cause of the Kurdish people and their demand for peace and justice in the world. And we hear that call from so many others, because their freedoms are our freedoms. Our internationalism is not about imposing nationalism on other people. It is about respecting the rights of people all over the world to live in decency, freedom, and enjoy the human rights that we've won for ourselves in this country. And I have to say, there is a degree of celebration going on a bit south of where Donald Trump comes from. I think we should congratulate the people of Mexico on electing Andrés Manuel López Obrador as the president. And I particularly thank Len McCluskey and Unite for the support they gave over many years to the mine workers of Mexico, including when their leadership of Napoleon Gomez had to live in exile, and the union supported them. That's practical, international, real solidarity in action, which is what we are made of and what we are proud of. But this meeting is a message about power. The power of people, the power of hope, and above all, the power of the unity of our movement across national borders to bring about social justice and change in the way that Bernie Sanders explained in the video message that he sent us earlier today. This meeting goes on because people support it. And we've got here something Lara's going to hold up. There. This was left for me last night when I arrived. No, not that. This bit. Support the Maris, support the campaign, support this festival, because it needs to go on forever. Because it is about celebrating our past. Yes, of course it is. But it's also about where we go forward to in the future. This is the 150th anniversary of the foundation of the TUC. It is a very important historical moment to celebrate. I'm old enough to remember the centenary celebrations in 1968 of the TUC. We're now on the 150th. But the foundation of the TUC was a coming together of a lot of very different traditions of the labour movement. The tradition of skilled unions, of craft unions, derived from the guilds of the past, bringing together with the general unions of workers all over the country. And it was the unity that brought them all together. And what's different about the Labour Party from many others is that the Labour Party, some years later, was created by the trade unions, whereas other parties around the world have created unions in their own image. I'm proud to lead a party that's founded by the trade unions, supported by trade unions, and I am proud to be a trade unionist leading the Labour Party. The centenary of the Fire Brigades Union. You heard from Matt Rack earlier, and no one will ever forget the speech he made here last year, just after Grenfell. I was on the Grenfell March, the silent march on the 1 year on from that terrible night and that terrible fire. Awful, awful experience for everybody. The power of a silent march around the streets, recognising that human solidarity with people and that incredible support given by firefighters, ambulance workers, police, volunteers and so many others to help people in their most desperate hours of need, and continuing the psychological and community support that's so necessary. Imagine a child where every member of your family died in that fire and only you survived. Imagine that sense of loneliness that so many people are facing a year on. And imagine the firefighters, through the public inquiry, having to relive those moments. But I agree absolutely with what Francis said. The culpability and the guilt surrounding Grenfell are those that put dangerous materials on buildings, those that didn't care about poor working class communities, those that want to deregulate our health and safety in this country. And it beggars belief that in the country's richest borough, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, there is the greatest gap between the richest and the poorest of any part of the country. In Golborne Ward, in the north of the borough, it is one of the poorest places in the whole of Britain. Not far south, 15 minutes away, there are people of unbelievable levels of wealth. I simply say this: Kensington, you should be ashamed of yourselves in not rehousing all of those people in 1 year on. And I would also say gently, well maybe not so gently, to those very wealthy people living in some parts of Kensington and Chelsea, and indeed in other parts of this country. A Labour government is coming into office, a Labour government dedicated to reducing inequality, a Labour government that will increase corporate taxation and taxation of the very richest in order to pay for the services that the rest of the community absolutely need. But it's a Labour government that is going to do so much more in so many ways. We glory in our National Health Service, and rightly so. The legacy of the next Labour government will be a National Education Service, because the principle behind it is we take the commodity out of education and replace it with the right to education and the right to know. The right for every young person to study a craft, an apprenticeship, a degree of equal value and equal importance. A nation needs engineers, a nation needs electricians, a nation needs gas fitters, a nation needs teachers, nurses, and so much else. Nobody gave women the right to vote. Nobody gave the right not to be discriminated against. All those rights were won by popular action, by people, by trade unions and political parties coming together and demanding them as a way of gaining their freedom and their liberation. And so I would like our schools in future to teach the history of the Labour movement. I don't want to go into a school, speak to A-level students who are ever so polite and put their hand up and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Corbyn, what's a trade union?" I want them to know that, because they will have learnt it in school. The struggle of those who combined together under that tree in Tolpuddle in the beginning of the 19th century, in mining communities all over the country, because they knew full well workers combined together in a trade union are much stronger than individuals being picked off by an employer and split apart. It's not a complicated concept. And so I want our children to understand that and the contribution trade unions have made to safety at the workplace, to wages, to conditions, to international solidarity, and so much more. because they are part and parcel of our lives and of our national story. But a Labour government will deliver on education, and I'm determined we will deliver on housing. I do not want to live in a country that tolerates people sleeping rough on the streets while the mega rich keep their homes empty as investment opportunities for the future. I want us to invest in decent housing for the future, and I'm determined that a Labour government will do that. We will build council housing with lifetime tenancies on social rent. The housing crisis. I don't know any solution to the housing crisis that doesn't begin and end with building good quality, sustainable council housing. And Aaron Bevan, who was the Minister of Health that brought in the National Health Service 70 years ago, was also the Minister for Housing. And we celebrated his achievements in Tredegar a few weeks ago, the town that brought us the National Health Service. The Tredegar Medical Aid Society was the forerunner of the National Health Service. But Nye recognised, as we all recognise, the NHS is wonderful and should be celebrated. It should not be diced up, sliced up, carved up or privatised. It is ours not to be sold off. But our health depends on many things. Our health is not just what the doctor can do for us, what the hospital can do for us. It's also the quality of the air we breathe, the quality of the house we live in, the stress we face at work, the stress young people are put through, and the mental health crisis that goes with it. Or often older people denied the social care that they deserved. I want our whole country to be in better health, therefore better paid, better housed, better educated and better able to live their lives to the fullest possible extent. But it's not just about that, it's the creative in everybody that is there. You saw the banners coming in, you see the incredible artwork on those banners. You hear the music and the creativity that goes with it in all those bands, the improvisation. You see all around the country young people doing their best on music, wanting somewhere to rehearse and so on, and young people wanting to act, wanting to make films, wanting to do all the creative things. I want to lead a government that says, great, we are a creative nation, we are creative and innovative people. Let's make sure under Labour, every child in every school gets to learn a musical instrument. But it's also about jobs and economy. Others have pointed out that over the past 8 years, poverty and inequality and injustice have increased in this country. Wages have been frozen for a very long time. Real wages are actually falling for many people. There are almost 1 million on 0 hours contracts who don't know how much they're going to earn from one week to the other. And there are another 400,000 children living in poverty over the last 8 years. And as Dennis pointed out, that number will inexorably increase the longer these wretched Tories remain in office. It needs a Labour government to invest. And with the hand-holding with Donald Trump back in vogue again, I fear for a race to the bottom on our rights, our regulations, our justice and our work. We have won rights to holiday pay, to maternity leave, to paternity leave, to work in a safe environment, and the right to join a trade union, all weakened under the Tories. I want to lead a government that strengthens all of those rights and encourages people to come together and join a trade union. And to lead a government whose bottom line on negotiations over Brexit are defence of jobs, defence of living standards, defence of decency within our society, and trade, yes, that guarantees jobs. The alternative is what Boris Johnson, Liam Fox and many others offer, which is a hands-on trade deal with Donald Trump, which will bring you chlorinated chicken, GM foods, a race to the bottom, an end to all the regulations that we the Labour movement, have won over very many decades. We're not giving up, we're not going away, we're going to fight for those jobs. That gives workers the power so that Carillion goes under. The workers are not all dismissed. They're invited to run the company, because you know what? They couldn't run it worse than the Carillion management did. And there are so many other examples we could use, but we are very clear. We're bringing Royal Mail, we're bringing water, we're bringing rail back into public ownership where they belong. But it's also about fairness in society. My constituents, like many of you here, have been through the misery of the introduction of universal credit. The whole problem that goes with it, the poverty that goes with it, the rents that are not paid, so many other problems that go with it. And the way in which so many older people in our society are scared and frightened and have been so badly treated. The WASPy women are here today. I want justice for the WASPy women. I want to see them be properly treated. And the points that Dennis made about the pensions of the miners, absolutely right. A Labour government will bring justice to the miners and the mine workers and the mining communities. We will not allow a pension rip-off. We will not allow a government to rip off those communities. Because our duty as a party is to redress the awfulness of the past. And one of the first actions I've asked Diane Abbott to take when she becomes Home Secretary is a public inquiry into Orgreave and Shrewsbury and the policing of the miners' strike. Because when you uncover injustice of the past, and I've been through campaigns on Guildford, on Birmingham and many others, you begin to frame the future, and that way you make ourselves stronger for the future. That's what movements do together. Yesterday, thousands and thousands of people were on the streets of London and many other parts of the country to welcome the American president to Britain. Welcome him to point out that what he does to women, what he says about Muslim communities, what he says about Mexicans, what he's doing on trade by imposing tariffs and starting a trade war is wrong and dangerous. What he is now trying to do on the Iran nuclear deal of walking away from it is very, very dangerous indeed. That peace agreement was put together after many years of work by a lot of very dedicated people. We are not going to allow Donald Trump to tear up the hopes of peace within that region and an end to the dangers of nuclear proliferation there. I want to lead a government that will say to the US president, sorry, you're not on that. Sorry, you're not on when you try to walk away from the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Our duty, all of us, is to support, sustain and defend the planet on which we live. The system in which we live. And remember those great people who went before us. And I close with this. The March of the Workers by William Morris. On we march then, we the workers, and the rumour that ye hear is the blended sound of battle and deliverance drawing near. For the hope of every creature is the banner that we bear, and the world is marching on. Thank you.
Let's hope before next year, when I'm standing here, I'm announcing him as Prime Minister. Right, I'd like to call upon the Chairman of the Durham Mine Workers Association, Joe Whitworth, to give a vote of thanks on your behalf. Thank you.
That was something else. Can I give thanks to all of you for being here today? Hope you enjoyed a brand new gala. It gets better every year. Let's keep it growing. Next year, the DMA is 150 years old. That's the Durham Miners Association, not me. We expect you all to be back here for what will be a momentous event. It'll be a huge celebration of who we are, what we stand for, and what we believe in. A big meeting thank you to all our speakers, the lads, the lasses who have helped put this gala on. And we'll clean up after you. We couldn't do it without you. Don't forget to support the Morris. Last year, we were bigger than Glastonbury. They earned £45 million in ticket sales. Ours, zero. The gala is free. Let's keep it that way through your subscriptions. As we always say, the past we inherit, the future we build. Billy Bragg is on next. Thanks for your support over the years. Great to see you all back. See you all next year. Thank you.